everyone, and welcome to our YouTube channel, Moneyline with Nancy at TV. In case you're not a subscriber yet, please do subscribe. Just press the subscribe button as well as turn on the notification bell so that you can get notifications when we upload our videos. Don't also forget to subscribe and join, follow, like our other social media platforms. Of course, you're seeing it right about now. Don't also forget to share this video across your platforms. Enjoy the video. Bahago Kashema Andrew, a development economist, is my guest this morning, and we're looking at rebasing Nigeria's GDP and CPI. Mr. Andrew, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Nancy. I'm fine. Thank you, Nancy, for having me.
Now, let's get started. GDP rebasing and CPI rebasing. Let's get started by, I would like you to define what GDP is. I don't think we should take it, assume that everyone knows. It's an economic term, definitely, GDP and CPI. So what do these terms mean?
So GDP means gross domestic product, which shows the monetary value of the productivity of goods and services produced in a country in a particular year. So it kind of shows the productivity level of a country, while consumer price index shows the level at which prices of goods and services change over time, basically.
So I hope everyone understands that. Yeah. So it's the totality of, that's for GDP, totality of economic output, whatever we do in the country at between a period of time, let's say 2024 to 2025. CPI, how prices change. You go to the market, you buy tomato at this price today. When you go again, it don't change. That is actually what it means. So I don't think I need to make it more complicated than that. What do you think is the main objective behind this GDP rebasing and CPI?
So the main objective is traditionally, as a standard, it's expected that these indicators are rebased every 5 years to give a good picture of GDP itself in terms of output and also in terms of the level at which prices are changing over time. So now, what these two indicators, this rebasing exercise is mainly to just ensure that the base period used in computing these macroeconomic indicators are brought further into current times, as well as bringing on board variables or new and emerging industries that have been left out over the period that was not captured prior to time moving, basically.
Are you surprised that the numbers are not out now? I mentioned that at the beginning, I'm actually surprised that the rebased numbers aren't out because the NBS promised us end of January.
End of January.
Are you surprised?
I'm surprised because I was expecting that, okay, by at least the weekend, we would have gotten an update on the numbers, especially because they promised to do so after, during the sensitization workshop, they had with the Nigerian Economic Summit Group. I think that's where they mentioned it. So we'll just sit back and then watch and see what happens this week.
How do you think that when this rebasing comes out, how would it really impact the way we measure Nigeria's economic growth and inflation? Our economic growth, of course, for 2024, averagely we grew at about 3.3%. CPI, averagely for 2024, was about 32 to 33%. High double-digit growth, double-digit for inflation. When they do release this, how do you think it will impact the way we measure?
So now,
because of the change in base year.
Okay, because of the change in base year, basically, I would say during the sensitization workshop, they actually gave a picture of the approaches they used in computing this, and then bringing on board relevant stakeholders like the IMF and the World Bank, ensuring that because they are macroeconomic indicators, and their methodologies have to align, with other countries, because, there are major bases for comparing economic performance across different jurisdictions. So, and also the data sources that actually informed the way they computed these macroeconomic indicators. So to answer your question, I would say the implications will more likely be tied to the way policymakers actually respond to these values when they actually come out. Because I want to give the basis of, I want everybody to look at this rebasing exercise as more like increasing the precision of the KPIs, key performance indicators, used to track the impact of government actions and policy actions in the country. So there's no, okay, if GDP increases by like 20% or 30% or 40%, it's a value. But how does policymakers, both policymakers and captains of industry, respond to those numbers in terms of developing their policies and then developing their policies to be able to achieve desired objectives?
Okay, let's go back historically and take a look at 2014 when we last rebased GDP, for instance. Because, of course, you've said, and very rightly so, that GDP, when GDP is rebased, or even inflation numbers, CPI, are being rebased, it gives the government, it makes the government look through the lenses of how the economy is wired, where needs assistance and all of that. If we take a look at from 2014 till last year, do you think that the GDP rebasing of 2014, that we've learnt any lessons? Have we seen government responding to that 2014 rebased numbers, that we should now have expectations that when this one comes out, that government would respond adequately? I hope you understand what I mean.
I understand what you mean.
Because even for 2014, we saw Nigeria just suddenly became Africa's largest economy in 2014, with some other sectors being added. Have we seen government commensurate effort to say, oh, okay, these numbers, we are baking a larger pie now. What can we do to make it larger?
Okay, so what I'll say is, okay, so to answer your question, I'll make reference to the policies that have been rolled out of recent. And then the possible, because I want us to see the reality in
That's a smart way to answer it, though. I understand what you're saying.
Practicality
of it.
Yeah, so because I feel the best way to objectively respond to your question is to see the kind of policies that have been rolled out by government of recent and its impact to the common man on the street. So if you look at the idea around the Naira redesign policy and the approach of implementation, the fuel subsidy removal and its impact, the exchange rate liberalization, and also the high pass-through effects because of our low productivity and high import dependent we are, so you can already see that government needs to do more in terms of actually looking at critical components of these gross domestic product and then develop strategic positions towards increasing them. So that's one of the benefits I will say this rebasing exercise has, in the sense that it has identified 8 additional productive activities, or I will tag them as new and emerging industries. You can agree that the digital economy is one of it. They added the activities of the pension fund administrators, Nigerian health insurance, and then also the activities of modular refineries, which all these activities have not been captured in the previous, So now it's an indication for government to look at these sectors, right? Do strategic stakeholder mappings of the key players in these sectors, and also do value chain analysis to actually understand the strengths and weaknesses of these sectors, and then develop strategic policies towards strengthening these sectors. And what that will do eventually will be, it will increase outputs, that is the contribution of those sectors or activities to GDP, as well as empower those working in those sectors, thereby increasing the standards of living of those in those sectors, basically. So basically providing policy and institutional framework for those new and emerging industries, as well as providing funding to them, because it's not enough to develop policies and institutional framework, but providing adequate finance to be able to actually drive economic growth in those sectors, basically.
I understand where you're coming from, and when I said it's a smart way to answer my question, because taking it back to 2014, of course, we know that services now take a larger chunk of our GDP. You're looking at digital services there. Commerce has even gone from the normal buying and selling. You have even digital commerce going on and all of that. So new and emerging industries came up, and we've seen different policies to across that sector. At the time, they said they wanted to start taxing those that are doing skits on Instagram. You know, all of that. So if the government did not have a full picture of this thing was happening, especially within the services space, it wouldn't do all of that. Now, let's come to 2024, and as we expect 2025, do you expect that big jump that we also saw in 2014 when the GDP is rebased? Of course, the MBS has said that it will add other sectors that are, I would say, you know, that are not too good, illegal, you know, to the space, and a lot of critics have said, why would you do that? You know, so what is the magnitude of the jump you're expecting? Because there could be a jump, actually, if it happens. There could be a jump when they release the rebased numbers. But what kind of jump, what magnitude of jump would you expect?
So what I can say with certainty right now is that there is going to be a jump. But to what extent? I don't have any evidence-based reason, yes, to be able to say to what extent. Yes.
Do you think that other sectors that we captured in 2014 will be better captured this time? I hope you understand my question. Do you understand my question?
I understand your question.
Okay, so go ahead.
So, making reference to the sensitization workshop that was also done, they highlighted the introduction of digital approach to tracking, you know, these indicators, you know, which increases that means moving from paper to digital means of actually getting their information and feeding into their competitions, which means the precision at which they will use to actually get their data that will feed into the competition will be better captured, because, you know, technology is fundamental and increases productivity or output. So that's what I have to say towards answering your question.
Because I'm thinking for sectors like tech, fintech, and even the gig economy, if this new GDP recalculations would better capture that sector, like what we had how many years ago now? About 2014 till now is like 11 years, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, 11 years.
Yes, about 11 years ago, and we're supposed to be rebasing every five years. So I'm wondering actually what would happen now if those sectors will be largely, that is not collectively captured now, but fully captured. Now let's move over to the economy that is largely informal. Nigeria's economy is largely informal. Many traders, you have artisans that do not even show up, perhaps even in official numbers, apart from like the SMEs survey. Madam Jumoke has said there will be an MSME survey this year, though we know that the informal sector contributes so much to Nigeria's economy. Do you see that being captured when they release their rebased numbers?
So, making reference to the workshop again, the surveys they conducted, one of which was the 2023 Nigerian Living Standard Survey data, yeah, is a household data. They highlighted that there were they increased the precision in capturing informal activities in those surveys, and those are some of the bases at which they are including what they tagged, is it informal or hidden economies?
Yes, hidden economy.
Exactly. So, their approach was evidence-based, so they said they captured it from the surveys they actually got. So that means they already have a basis for actually including this illegal, or no, let me not call it illegal, but like hidden, hidden,
Hidden, underground,
hidden
underground
or
economy.
underground economy. Thank you.
Okay, let's move over to CPI. And for the average Nigerian that is really struggling now with rising costs, rising prices, how does this rebasing for the CPI help? Will it change how inflation is reported? Or some people will just say whether it will just refine the numbers. We're also expecting, some are expecting that inflation numbers may come down as a result of the rebasing. And perhaps that's why the president gave us a hint that he has a target of inflation numbers for 15% this year.
Yeah, so that's a general belief that's actually out there. But unlike the GDP, it's difficult to project that of consumer price index, because you are trying to look at the price of today based on the reference price of the CPI base period. And then, these numbers are computed based on, there were various, they classified various commodities from which these prices change. So it won't be as clear, because like we are not in control of the prices of today and tomorrow. So we just need to wait to see that the results from the consumer price, to be able to see to what extent it goes up or down. But making reference to the assumptions placed by the president on the 2025 budget. We all know the current state of the economy, the high inflationary pressures, affecting households and also businesses. And we can say for sure that 15% inflation rate is very ambitious.
Very ambitious. Okay, because of the base year will be changed to 2024, that's for CPI. How weighty do you think that food will be now? Because our current inflation basket is quite heavy on food. Perhaps when they also rebase, do you see that reducing and that drastically also pulling down inflation numbers?
So now I haven't actually thought about that, but because I'm looking at it specifically from the rate of change, from current prices to now, especially because of the kind of inflation we've had, over time.
Let me understand what you're saying. That you haven't really thought about that, but you know that our inflation is food heavy.
Yes.
It's food heavy. Are you talking about the month-on-month change in terms of prices?
Not month on month, but like the inflationary pressures, over time, has a way of affecting current price with reference to the base year now, the prices of the base year. Yeah, so I can't really say for now. Yes, based on that until I see the numbers basically.
Okay, but nominally speaking, I understand where you're coming from, but nominally speaking, if inflation, this is the inflation basket,
Okay.
and that inflation basket is pulled so much as a result of food. So will this readjustment that they will do for CPI, do you think it will reduce it? Anyway, some people will say that's for numbers. Numbers is different from reality.
Exactly.
You understand? So even if you change the numbers, does that mean You know, so I'm taking a look at if it will reduce that food-heavy basket, and perhaps other things enter, that Nigerians are consuming other things apart from food. Like in Lagos, I don't know if you remember the Living Standard Survey of 2022, whereby like in Lagos, food was not what was taking so much money that Lagosians were spending on. You're seeing like housing, even data, and all of that. So now man has more than 3 needs, basic needs, as it were, you know, as a result of the changing world and technology. So that's what I'm really asking, if you foresee something like that happening. Or, or I should just allow you to take a breather then. Would you think about it and let's look, or I've given you something as a food for thought,
Yeah.
you know. Okay, let's take a look at other sectors, because for us now discussing and how do you think that Nigerians should react to the numbers when they come out? Why I'm asking this question is that so that people don't see it as statistical growth, as it were, like 2014. Oh, Nigeria became the largest economy in Africa, but we also became the poverty capital of the world, and we haven't changed. Now we've gotten down to about the 4th economy in Africa as a result of our GDP numbers. So how will that translate? How should Nigerians even interpret this when the MBS brings it out?
So now, like I earlier said, I want the common man on the streets to understand that these indicators are more like KPIs to track government performances, right? But then the main thing that Nigerians should understand is what are the implications of the decisions made by policymakers based on their understanding of these numbers. That is where the impact on them will be directly felt. Let me give you an example. Let me explain. So now, we already know that GDP is going to rise, right? So if we take an indicator such as tax revenue to GDP now, at the moment, tax to GDP ratio is about 10%. So now, if you take the ratio of tax to the rebased GDP now, that number will fall. That means we'll have a percentage less than 10%, right? But that's a number. But is that really it? We can then take a look at the evidence from the fiscal and tax bill now that is ongoing. Part of the evidence we can get from there is the fact that it's the poor and vulnerable that pay the highest taxes. And that's why part of the proposition is the bringing on board a progressive tax, you know, and then also trying to develop some tax laws that captures reducing some basic taxes such as per capita income tax, personal income tax, personal income tax, and then company income tax.
Yeah,
and then also exempting some tax, you know, by increasing the threshold for businesses from 25 million to 50 million, you know, giving them enough time and ability to actually contribute, you know, before they start making all these payments. And then also exempting some taxes from like basic necessities, such as food, accommodation, transportation. So you see, the reaction of policymakers based on their understanding of these numbers is where the impact
will be
felt. So when you say what should Nigerians think about the numbers, if you ask me, I'll be more concerned about the understanding of these numbers by policymakers. That's my perception about this.
Yeah. Because it should give the policymakers and government an idea of how to plan their policies. For example, the 2025 budget, or even, you know, budgets that would come. For example, when this is released, I expect the 2026 budget should be different from 2025 budget in terms of policy making.
Exactly.
I expect that the Ministry of Budget and Economic Planning should be able to take a look at it and say, okay, this is how Nigeria's economy is structured. And these are the places that need, even with finance, or even the FEC now as it were. Where's the role of states in all of this? The role of states, because that's actually where economic activities happen.
Mostly.
Yes.
Yeah.
What's the role of states in all of it? Because we seem to be calling it federal government. When these GDP numbers are rebased and released, and CPI, what should be the role of state governors?
So yeah, so that's also, yes, that's also very fundamental. During the workshop, their efforts to, so there are already some states, I think up to like 20 maybe or 22, that also have some GDP numbers,
yes,
so
GDP
that we
numbers,
can also
yeah.
start tracking that. I think that's one interesting thing, but I feel we just need to increase the numbers to the 36 states that we have, so that it's more robust. You know, I guess that should be the major starting point. But I feel that the general performance of the GDP at the national level is also fundamental for the governors, especially looking at those critical sectors, you know, the new and emerging sectors, as well as the top 7 performing sectors. You can see from what they released, on the 7 top performing sectors, or will I call them productive activities. If you compare the old sectors from the new ones, you will see that crude oil and natural gas production moved from a 3rd position from the old to like the 5th on the new. So you now start asking yourself questions, you know, about those things. And those kind of informations are fundamental for states, oil producing states, you know, because they have some revenue.
Food for thought.
Exactly. And then what actually costs real estate to now move from like 5th item to the 3rd, you know, while every other productive activities remain constant.
Many questions to ask. But LBS, we are waiting for you to release these numbers so that we can actually, you know, dissect more of this when it comes out. Bahago Kashema Andrew, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Bahago Kashema Andrew is a development economist, and we've been looking at rebasing GDP and CPI while we wait for the NBS to release those numbers. That's the much we can take on today's edition of the program. Thank you for your company as always. I am Nancy Naji. Please join me again tomorrow on this channel. Be the best you can be and be the change that you want to see. Bye for now. Thank you for making it up to this minute watching the video. Thank you all. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Moneyline with Nancy TV. Like, follow all our other social media platforms where we keep you up to speed with fantastic interviews, as well as markets, personal finance, business, and economy information. This is the best place to be. I'll see you all again in the next video.